Hey, this is Sean with Sampson Racing Communications. I wanted to show you the setup on an external antenna kit and what makes it up and a couple of the parts and pieces. And the last thing would be troubleshooting on a radio system if you have an external antenna system. This is the coax as it runs from the roof area down to the radio. And this BNC connector right here is universal from the standpoint that here's 3 examples of different radios with different BNC attaching points to the top of the radio if you pull the external antenna off. This takes the place. This BNC connector just mounts right to it with a twist and a turn, and it holds it in place. The coax then runs up to the actual roof itself. One of the big things we hear troubleshooting wise is we're having static issues. One of the biggest things is that these brass teeth right here, these need to be grounded to the actual roof chassis. So if you drill a hole through the roof, it's going to be a 3/4 inch hole. Underneath, you want to make sure you ground out and get down to bare metal. So these brass teeth are touching the flat surface of bare metal, and it makes a good ground. The other thing is make sure this is out snug and tight on the exterior of the car, and this gets sandwiched up nice and tight. The coax itself, as it runs from the roof down to your radio, make sure that it's not bundled into a loop such as this and zip tied. If you have extra material, go ahead and just run it up a door bar and down a door bar, but do not loop this like this. This creates an antenna loop inside the vehicle. Those 2 things right there are the biggest issues people have when they run an external antenna kit. Not properly grounded and looped into a bundle. These 2 antenna leads right here are the 2 types that are offered in the road racing market. This would be a 1/4 wave antenna, which works really well. It's a good standard issue, works extremely well. It's a balloon as it puts out its radio waves. It comes in a balloon. This is a 3 dB gain. The benefit of this particular radio antenna, besides it's got a very cool factor with a shark fin antenna setup, it puts out radio wave more like a football off the side of the car. So it reaches out farther on either side, but not quite as high out over the top, which we really don't need in the road racing market. So again, this is a standard roof mount external antenna with a few of the pros and cons and a couple things you can address when you do put it in if you're having issues. Again, check the ground on here, make sure it's grounded properly. Make sure this is not looped into a bundle. One thing I wanted to show on external antennas, and you'll see this a lot, is guys that have taken their antenna and then bent them over. One thing about the external antenna is that there's a little rubber grommet right here, and it really holds the actual 1/4 wave antenna in position so that this brass piece right here makes good contact with the brass piece that's on your roof. So if you have a deep roof and you've mounted this thing, deep roof being that this is thick and this brass piece is down a little bit, and you've mounted this all the way up into the inside like this, and you have it bent over, you might be screwing this down, and this brass piece might not be making contact with that. So one thing I suggest for those that pop their antennas off and on, when you do pop it back on and it's on snug, reach up with your finger and give it a little shove down. Make sure that that antenna is making good contact with the brass piece as it sits inside of here. And again, that's what that little rubber grommet's for, to hold it in position when you tighten it down. One thing nice about the Phantom antenna is actually it has a small spring load piece in here, and it adjusts automatically, as you can see, up and down to the actual height of the brass piece. So again, just make sure you're making good quality contact with that to make sure your external antenna is working properly.